Hello and welcome, my name is Excalibur and this is Dark Souls. Gonna start a brand new game here and jump in fairly quickly. For those of you who haven't seen this game before or don't know much about it, it's essentially a dark action role-playing game in which you build up stats, aim to take down bosses, and try and figure out what the hell's going on in the world around you. There are many questions that can be asked, there are many things to discuss and look at and think about. For the most part though, it's just going to be good old hack and slash with some interesting moments added in. I have played the game before and know it fairly decently. It's been quite some time though since I last played it, quite a few years in fact. More recently I have played through Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. Let's see. Not too fussed on the exact details of the character's appearance, as you can see they're not the best of models and the hair is somewhat wanting to see the very least in this game. They get better in the later sequels, but in this there's not very much to write home about. It's more a case of just pick something you like the look of and just run with it. Most of the game you're going to be seeing just the back of the character anyway, with most armor types they're going to be covered up pretty much entirely, so not too much to worry about. Basically I'm choosing to go Thief here, which is a high dexterity class in the style of most other role-playing games. It's very similar. You stack up dexterity to do more damage, you can add strength but it does slightly less damage for you, depending on modifiers of weapons and so on and so forth. And I won't really bother going into the rest of the stats right now, otherwise I'm going to spend like 20 minutes just going through what's what.
Yes, indeed. The dark sign brands the undead. And in this land, the undead are corralled and led to the north. Where they are locked away to await the end of the world. This is your fate.
And that's pretty much how the game starts. Now there is a small intro at the start of the game if you just wait around in the menus long enough. However, it just gives vague descriptions of the world and essentially informs you on the backstory of the entire world rather than anything personal or directly related to yourself. All we know about ourselves is that we're undead, and we've woken up in a prison which is designed to hold our type at the north of the world, locked away from everybody else. This is essentially a tutorial area with these messages on the ground relaying basic attack commands and that type of thing. But as you can see, the game just brings more things into question than it gives answers or explanations for immediately. It pretty much sets the tone for the rest of the game. You start in a cell, a random knight drops a corpse into it with you, and it has a key on it. There's like dead rat and also manacles which you assume would have been attached to yourself originally. but you have no clear explanation for anything. You don't know who actually brought you here, or whether you were actually meant to be here, or why. Then you come out here and there's this giant beast strolling around behind some caged off area. And you can't help but wonder, am I going to have to fight that thing at some point? These star-seeing enemies are extremely basic, with only... In fact, I think those first three don't even attack you. They're more just a case of, here's what an enemy looks like, try killing it. Also brings into question whether or not you should actually kill them. Essentially, they haven't attacked you, they haven't tried to do anything to you, and you just run out of nowhere, burst out your prison cell and start murdering people? Question mark? And this is a first introduction into one of the mechanics which will pop up throughout the game. It's essentially quite a subtle one. Like, just enters into this gated off area and it's like very reminiscent of a boss fight, but there's no boss anywhere to be found. Unless you look up there. And all of a sudden, oh look, there's a demon. Same as one down below who you can hear stomping around. And he appears to be looking straight at it. Oh well, leave him up there. Clearly not going to do anything else. Oh, that gate's opened over there. Oh, he's dropped down. Never mind. It's quite interesting because the game essentially displays that not every enemy has to be fought. However, you probably will fight them sooner or later. For the simple interest and desire of progress. The game has numerous mechanics as to its combat, with weapons having varying levels of durability and damage related directly to that, as well as a full upgrade system to increase the damage your weapons will deal and also increase armor stats and so on and so forth. As we're playing a thief to start out with, our dexterity is quite high, which means dexterity weapons will naturally be more beneficial to us than strength ones. And with most role-playing games, dexterity weapons tend to be the lighter, faster attacking ones, that type of thing. Typical stereotypes of a class and so on and so forth. There are basic defensive mechanics such as holding up shield to block. If you don't have a weapon equipped, you can block with your weapon. If you don't have a shield equipped, you can block with your weapon. And if you've got a shield equipped or specific weapons, you can also parry, which requires very specific timings to catch enemies' weapons in mid-flow. And here we find the knight who... So
You're no hollow. Thank goodness. I'm done for, I'm afraid. I'll die soon, then lose my sanity. I wish to ask something of you. You and I, we're both undead. Hear me out, will you?
As I was saying, here is the knight who so kindly helped us escape from our prison cell. You have to wonder about his motivations and also why he seems to be in such a sorry state all of a sudden.
Regrettably, I have failed in my mission, but perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There is an old saying in my family, "Thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know." Well, now you know, and I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this. An Estus flask, an undead favorite. Oh, and this. Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. So go now, and thank you.
And so he pretty much explains the entire undead mechanic and how it affects people, or afflicts them, should I say. And he also introduces us to our first healing item, or potion. The Estus Flask. And he's
Now
requested
I
for his
must bid
leaving.
farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. So go now, and thank you.
A quick explanation that you can replenish your Estus Flask at bonfires. And as you leave him as requested, you hear that little noise in the background. And he's gone. Dead. So yes, this hints at some of the key mechanics of the game, which will... I'm gonna have to remember how this parry works in this one. I'm doing it way too early by the look of it. There we go. Right, so it's quite late to what I'm thinking. As I was saying, he explains a good deal of the undead mechanics and also some of the lore of the world. When people die, they become undead, and then they basically turn on those living around them. Which would make a good deal of sense as to why they corralled all of undead, well, as many of the undead as they can up here in the north. Gonna have to get used to the parrying mechanic again. It's been so long since I've even tried to do it. What way, Mr. Archer? Oh. Shield bash is not parryable. However, normal attacks are. So yeah, these basic enemies introduce you into various mechanics of the game, from group fights to ranged attacks to dealing with other enemies with shields and that type of thing. And gives you a chance to figure things out at quite a calm pace. As you can see, it's showing the parry and riposte. So parry, riposte. And here we have behind an enemy, critical hit, so you just run up behind them, forwards, and slash, and you'll stab them in the back. These fog gates almost always lead into locked off areas or into boss battles. As you can see here, our gigantic friend from the start of the game is waiting around, quite politely. Oops. Stuck on his leg trying to roll away. He is actually quite easy to dodge. With the sheer intimidation factor from essentially one of the earliest enemies you see in the game, it's understandable that so many people die to him. Because you're more worried about the fact that you're facing a gigantic demon in one of the first rooms you've just entered. But he is in fact incredibly easy to kill. Got various little pieces and bits there. Just double check I've got anything particularly interesting. I don't think we did though. Have to get used to the menus as well. It's been a while since I played one of those. So it doesn't seem we've got any special items from a boss, and as far as I'm aware it can drop a giant mace, which is in fact the one it's using to attack you. And I think there's one or two potential rare items that it can drop, but they're not as interesting as a mace if I remember correctly. So one thing I always loved about this game is the sheer fact that it has such interesting scenic vistas, and you feel like the entire world is lived in and real. tend to be able to see for miles, and often in the majority of areas you can actually explore everywhere that you can see. This little nest over here is quite an interesting little piece. Like, what the heck is this over here? Oh, is it not interacting? Interesting. May have to rest at the bonfire to get back into action. Resting at the bonfire has multiple implications and effects on the game itself. Core one is your health is restored and all your Estus flasks are returned to you, however many you've unlocked at the time being. Also, however, any ordinary enemies in the area, or in the world as a whole, will be respawned. This is the basic idea of the undead, that they die, they raise again, and they die again, thus ever increasing their insanity. That's interesting. Normally you get a little voice and a couple of lines from this nest, from a slightly crazy sounding crow. Doesn't seem they want to talk to me today though. See, if I drop items here, then if it's an item they want, they will normally respond and tell me whether they want it or not, and give me an item in return if they do want it. You'll just have to trust me on that one though, as they don't seem to be talkative today. And thus we make our departure from the first area.
Only in the ancient legends it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen. To leave the undead asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran